Welcome to Implausible Nature, your home for all things Black Templars. On today's video, we are taking a look at relics and relic bearers, and we'll get into what the difference is shortly. We are going to be taking a look at each one individually, talk about their uses, and what we think of them, and kind of give you guys a good guide on what relics that you'll be wanting to take for your characters and possibly sword brethren or sergeants, because that's a thing we can do as well. So without further ado, we'll get into it. We're going to start with the classics. We've got the Crusader's Helm up first. It's largely the same. It is still add 3 inches to your auras, which is great. It's now a maximum of 9 inches, but that doesn't matter because you could never go above 9 anyway because of the restriction of the litany, even though it said at 12. I couldn't see any feasible way that it could get up to 12. Um, they have changed the second part a little bit. It is now in the command phase instead of the start of your movement phase, which I like because it's essentially the same thing. And now you can just remember to do it with all your other command phase stuff. More importantly, it is now a unit within 9 inches instead of 6 inches. So that's a pretty decent distance more. So I really like this. It's still a good relic. Obviously, we don't get Knights of Sigismund anymore. We have vows now instead. So you're really just getting the extra AP in for assault doctrine. Um, but honestly, like with Crusader squads or even Terminators who with Thunderhammers or Lightning Claws are only AP2, you really want them to be AP3. This is a good take. Something to note that it's not just when you make a melee attack, it's when you make an attack, which includes pistols. So those Crusader squads with those heavy pistols, heavy bolt pistols, are now going to be AP2 when they shoot. I mean, they would have been before, but we were typically putting this on units like Vanguard vets and Terminators who we didn't equip them with weapons. So, but I think a Crusader squad especially a big one, is a great candidate for this. Bump those chainswords up to AP2. What are your thoughts, Bob?
Yeah, it's still a great way to get that AP up there. If you are wielding a lot of like the lower AP weaponry, like chain swords, lightning claws, thunder hammers, those type of things. Like you said, that 9 inches is really huge. It makes it more applicable in the beginning of the game. Right away, the first turn, you can have more feasibility to use it on something
Hmm.
important, especially if you're using it on something that you're missiling across the board. If you're facing Zerkers, like we talked about in a
Yep.
previous video, like with those Vanguard veterans using Abhor the Witch, and you can use your Crusader squad on something like an Apothecary to which extends its aura for the 6+ Feel No
Mm.
Pain, will be able to be more adaptive in how you deploy, getting that extra range and putting that AP right on those Vanguards right away and move them off to the side of the board that you need them to, missiling a unit. So you'll get that extra AP. So instead of the 2, you're rocking
Yep.
3. That's kind of a good way of uh, getting those things over there.
Yep.
So still great thing. We have the vows now, obviously, so we don't need the Knights of
Hmm.
Sigismund. So this is just straight
Yep.
buff.
It's just a straight AP. And something else to consider too is, we were but previously moving to assault as quickly as we could because of, trying to get every benefit we could from the assault doctrine, which included Knights of Sigismund. We don't have that anymore. So, really, you probably only need to be an assault doctrine on a couple key units at most. You could stay in tactical doctrine if you have this a second turn and get your other weapons, still benefit. And, if you have a Crusader blob with this, they're still shooting at AP -2. Your other guns are still shooting at an extra AP. So, just something that it's just a great all around relic, useful in every situation, basically. All right, moving on. We have Witchseeker Bolts. Witchseekers are virtually unchanged. They tweaked the wording a little bit so that it's more clear that you can ignore Lookout, Sir. Um, but otherwise, it's exactly the same. You do D3 mortal wounds if you hit. Can only fire one shot against Psychers. So great relic, except that it's niche. So if you're in a very Psyker heavy meta, it's great. Stick it on a Phobos captain, or you know, you can even do something hilarious. One of our Discord members pointed this out. You can give it to the Eradicator Sergeant's bolt pistol, and because they have total obliteration, they can he can shoot it at, you know, something like if you're playing against Grey Knights, I guess you can shoot it at the unit and get shoot twice with it, which is funny. But otherwise, it's very niche. You're just gonna leave it at home unless you're just, you know, facing psychers all day long.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's a lot of really cool relics in our book now, and it's going to be competing with a lot of fun things that we can do. So typically, we're going to see this at home. Uh, Again, maybe we see some really circular heavy metas that this might be beneficial, but there's other things in our book that we typically will be taking more rounded relics for.
Yep. All right. So moving on, we've got the Aurillian Shroud. Now this one did kind of get a nerf. It was changed from Black Templars core or character to Black Templars core infantry. So Redemptors no longer benefit. That was one of the big reasons we were taking this relic previously, especially in multiple Redemptor lists, to get that crucial invulnerable save during, you know, a heavy round of first or second turn shooting from the opponent. So of course we also have Uphold the Honor now. So if we take that vow, the Redemptors are getting a 5-up anyway, and you know, this is much less needed. Um, you know, you could still take it if you were going to run a big blob of Crusaders and you didn't want to run Uphold. You could still give them a crucial turn of, you know, a really good and vulnerable save. Something that they did change, it used to be the start of the battle round. Now it is at the start of either player's command phase, which is kind of the same thing, but it gives a little bit more tactical flexibility because on your turn, you don't, if you're like, well, I'm not going to be in melee, so, you know, or whatever the case may be, you don't feel like you need to pop it on your turn. You can wait until their turn to do it and see where the board state is at after your turn, which is crucial. So it got nerfed, but it does have a slight consolation in there.
Yep. And this is still useful for things that you want to protect. Um, as mentioned, like maybe the blob squad, even if you are in uphold, having that just extra little pip of invulnerability against a heavy first turn, second turn, maybe shooting turn from your opponent so that you can protect them. Maybe you have that mini transhuman up in the 4+ plus maybe Grimaldus or an apothecary, then they're going to be really hard to kill.
Mhm.
Um, or maybe you just want to have some additional uh, invulnerables for other things, that first turn.
Sword Brethren,
So,
something like that. Yeah.
yep. So it still has uses. Downside is just infantry now, but there's plenty of things that's applicable to. So still useful.
Yeah.
You just may not see it as much as because of the uphold.
Yep. Um, so moving on, Ancient Breviary is unchanged, exactly the same as it was before. A plus relic. You're going to either want this or Wise Orator on your generic chaplains, depending on what you took for a relic or what you took for a warlord trait. So, you know, still fantastic. Whether you're running a Master of Sanctity or not, we want to make sure our litanies go off. They're super crucial to us. Still nearly an auto take on a generic chaplain.
Yep, I agree. It's an excellent chaplain relic.
Nothing's changed
Nothing
here.
more else needs to be said
Yep,
here.
which is great. So, the skull of Cacodominus. So this relic was a big old pile of, you know, previously, and it is no longer. It is, in fact, amazing. It is now an
Yes.
aura. So this thing has 3 parts. So the first part is while an enemy psyker is within 12 inches of this model, subtract 1 from psychic tests for that unit. Just flat 12-inch aura. That's huge. That's a really big aura. While an enemy psyker is within 12 inches of this model, each time a psychic test is taken for that unit, it suffers perils of the warp on any dice roll that includes a double, instead of only a double 1 or double 6. Also a really huge debuff. And then, just in case that wasn't enough, once per battle at the start of the opponent's psychic phase, which is really great that you get to choose it right at the start of their psychic phase, the bearer can raise the skull. And if it does, till the end of the phase, the bearer has the following ability. It's an aura. While an enemy psyker unit is within 18 inches of this model, 18 inches, so even better, subtract 1 from psychic tests made for that unit, and this is cumulative with the other abilities of the relic. So once per game, you're at -2 to cast, and you're always going to be periling on doubles, and always at least a -1. If you have a psyker heavy meta where you're facing lots of Thousand Suns and lots of Grey Knight players and lots of people who love to run witches, this relic is fantastic. But there's that caveat is if you're not, it's not great. It is capable of being taken on a sergeant, which is hilariously good because you could put it on a Vanguard veteran squad sergeant, and they're in their face turn 1 or 2, or at least probably in range of this, ability turn 1 or 2. So it's gonna really mess with, a psychic heavy army's plans from very early on. So in its niche, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I won't lie to you. I really love this relic. I'm strongly considering taking it in every one of my lists simply as something to have in my back pocket.
You never know what you're
Where
gonna face at the tournament.
I'm a tournament player, I
Yeah.
play from the competitive mindset, so I would say that at least 33% of the armies that you're typically going to face are going to have Zerkers in them, and this is going to be an amazing way of shutting them down. Uh, I don't even really need to name them off. Everyone knows.
Yeah.
You got Blood Angels, you got Death Guard, you got Dark Angels, Harlequins.
Yep.
Tons of armies out there that are using psychic powers, and this will eliminate them from contention easily.
Yeah.
Now, it will cancel out the Thousand Suns bonuses, but then they're not getting their
Yeah.
+1,
Yeah.
and they're still going to have the chance to peril, which is
Hmm.
huge.
Yep.
So, I mean, for 1 CP, taking this on, maybe you mentioned your Vanguard veterans. I would counter by saying, hey, maybe a chaplain that's hiding behind a Vanguard veteran
Yeah.
might be something. He's protected by Lookout Sir, so
Yep. Give him Wise Orator and this, and go to town. I'm strongly considering it, taking it in my list as well. The guys that I usually play with run a lot of psychers. One of them plays Grey Knights now. So yeah, this is gonna really ruin their days when they try to cast psychic powers. Um, so yeah, great overall relic. It does its niche. Obviously, it only works against psychers, but there's a lot more of that now. So consider it. Um, Moving on, the last of our old relics, or previous, existing relics, the Sword of Judgment got a huge buff. It can now be taken on a relic blade. I don't know why you would spend 10 points to when you could spend 3 or 5 and get a power sword, but whatever. Um, but now instead of being +1 strength, it's +3 strength. It's still AP -3 and flat 3 damage, and you can still put it on a sergeant or a sword brethren. This thing is like almost an auto take in every game. Like, well, which dude am I going to put it on? Is like really the question. Especially when you pair it with Champion of the Feast to get an extra attack, +1 weapon skill. There's no minus to hit. It's stellar, absolutely stellar relic.
yeah. Previously, when it was only the +1 damage or +1 strength, sorry, it was pretty blah. You know,
Yeah.
you would just stick with its standard mastercraft weapons. Now, this is what you make super sergeants out of. You know,
Hmm.
this thing just tears and creams things. So
Yep.
I love this weapon. If you're taking Blade Guard veterans, you should always take this. I mean, if you're not and you're running Vanguard veterans, take them on the sergeant there. I mean,
Save a
it
few
should be.
points. Just buy him a power sword instead of a relic blade, like we've been doing. Or on the sword brethren in a large crusader squad.
Yep, that's a
You
perfect
know,
spot too.
yep. And consider that it's +3 strength. If Helbrecht is nearby, now it's essentially a Thunderhammer or Power Fist.
Yep.
So really, really, really good relic. 100%, basically almost an auto take. You're going to want to take this in the vast majority of your list. It's that good. Especially with the other buffs that we can lay on, like you said, the super sergeant, the super sword bro.
Yeah.
So, so yeah. So the next 5 relics in the list here are finally what the other chapters call special issue Wargear. Uh, they are the same for every single chapter. We're not really going to go over them here. I'm going to just briefly touch on Mastercrafted Power. Mastercrafter weapon is decent. It's probably the best of the lot to take if you're going to take something. It's useful on a sergeant or like a firstborn captain, but all your Primaris dudes all come with Mastercrafted stuff anyway. And if you're taking it on a sergeant, you're not taking a Sword of Judgment or the Skull. So, yeah, um, you know, none of them are bad. They're just bog standard. If you're familiar with Space Marines, you're already familiar with these. So, any thoughts on these, Bob?
Yeah, you know, like I said, the Mastercraft, you might take it on something, possibly the Aquila Immortalis on HQ, but beyond that, you're really not going to take them. You know,
Right.
there's more interesting options.
Yep. So, the Aquila Immortalis is our next one, and it is pretty solid. +1 to the bearer's toughness and attacks. Um, this would probably be the go-to relic for a combat character if it weren't for a relic we're going to talk about later on. It's a solid relic. It just gets overshadowed by Tannhausers, which we'll talk about here shortly. Um, if you're trying to strike a middle ground between pure killy and pure defense, this might be the relic for you because it adds a little bit to both, which is good. Um, just a good solid relic. Nothing wrong with it.
Yep, I agree. This could be an option for you if you want to make two durable um, biker captains and or chaplains. Maybe
Hmm.
one is taking um, your chaplain's taking Tannhauser, and maybe the captain's taking the Aquilas. You know, so they both have some durability.
Yep.
So we threatening HQs, something that we haven't really had. The mobile threatening characters, and now that we can do that, they can be harassment units with this unit and Tannhausers, which we'll talk about in a second. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Perdition's Edge. This is a another new one. It replaces a power axe or master crafted power axe. And it is obviously an axe. It's +3 strength, which is awesome. Still AP -2 standard power axe, and obviously, as you'd expect, two flat damage for being essentially a master crafted power axe. And it does have a nifty little ability. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, an unmodified wound roll of 6 inflicts 2 mortal wounds on the target and the attack sequence ends. So if you roll a 6 to wound, your opponent just gets no save and they take 2 mortal wounds, which is really nice. I really like this relic. It's fun. It's cool because it's an axe. It's unique to us, and it's solid. +3 strength is great. Flat 2 damage is you know nothing to write home about, but it's still good, and the ability to plink some mortal wounds here and there, pretty good.
Yep, I agree. You know that you're looking for the high strength weaponry that still has decent AP and damage on it, which is great. You know, obviously, 2 damages, average,
Yeah.
but really it's going to only matter against dreadnoughts and death guard, where that
Right.
you're really going to be seeing a difference on it. But that the ability to put out a couple of mortal wounds on that on average, if you're putting it on captain, you'll get two mortal wounds on average, and that's going to be
Mm.
pretty huge. They
Yeah.
have to bounce it to two separate units before they take the other damage, so that's kind of an important thing, especially if you're
Yeah.
single wound targets.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So, Breath of the Throne. So this is with for a model with a combi flamer or auto flamer. Auto flamers are the Primaris version with the autobolt rifle and flamer combined. Um, and it has the following profile. It is or excuse me, it replaces the flamer profile, just the flamer profile, so you don't lose the bolt part, which is nice. But the flamer profile becomes range 12, assault D3 plus 3, so you get at least 4 hits, which is nice. It's strength 5, AP minus 1, and flat 2 damage. And then, of course, it auto hits, just like all flamers. Um,
Burn
it's
the
pretty
witch.
cool. Burn the Witch. It's pretty cool. I like it. It's not bad. It's a flamer that does 2 damage, which is solid. Can't go wrong with it. The the trouble is that, again, it's competing with other really, really good relics like Perdition's Edge and Sword of Judgment and some of these other ones that we've already talked about. So
I like this. So
it's
there is an
fun.
army build that I have, and I've posted in the Discord, and I'll probably talk about it on these videos here soon. But this thing is really fun. I really like the idea around this. Getting as many flame weapons as you can in a list, and having all those shots without having to tap into our stratagems is really kind of cool. Plus, it has 2 damage. That's killer.
And it's minimum 4 shots. So you're going to average 5, which is great. And it's strength 5.
What
So you're going to
Overwatch? What?
wound stuff better. Yeah. So it's good. I like it. It's fun. It's thematic, and there's nothing wrong if you wanna take this. Maybe somebody else already has a Sword of Judgment, and you want your captain with that sweet new auto flamer to have some extra damage when he shoots, which is cool.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's going to be like the most competitive pick, but yeah, if you're
No,
not really worried about that, this is an awesome relic. I like
you
it.
just want to burn the witch. This is
Burn the
your
witch.
relic. So that brings us to last and most certainly not least. They really just kind of snuck this in here right at the end.
Yep.
I remember when I read the codex for the first time, and I was like, "Ooh, boy, look at that! Wow!" So Tannhauser's bones, or as we like to affectionately call it, the T-bones.
Yep.
Uh, each time an attack is allocated to the bearer, the damage characteristic of that attack is changed to 1. 1. So that huge Melta shot you just shot me with, that giant Thunderhammer, that Primarch Fist, 1 damage. This is ridiculously good. It is. We have most of the people in our Discord that have been sharing their lists are taking this relic on somebody because it's that good. I mean, a chaplain on a bike, he's already got 7 wounds and toughness 5, and now he reduces damage down to 1. I took it on my captain, my marshal, in the one of the games I played so far this edition, and it was fantastic. So this is a plus relic for sure.
Yep. This is single-handedly the relic that brings roaming HQ units back into the mix. You can put this anywhere on the board. You don't have to worry about Lookout Sir or any of that stuff, because whatever that they're doing to you is going to be only 1 damage. Now, with that being said, if you're not careful and you're going to get yourself parked in front of like a million gunshots, you get shot by enough
Yeah,
damage on stuff, you're still going to go down. But if you put it on something like a captain on a bike or the Primaris chaplain on bike, they're going to have pretty high damage and wound characteristics, so it'll still take you well over. Uh, I think Aspects did the math on it. It's like something like 28 shots,
it's
something like that,
ridiculous.
to
Yeah,
even dent them, and then you can throw on like Iron Resolve on them to give another wound
Another wound.
and a feel no pain as well. I mean, you could just
Yeah.
make them stupid good. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be great to tie up things like the Nightbringer, something that we never really had a counter for. You can
Yeah.
do with Morty. No longer do you have to throw units at him to slow him down. You can have your
Yep.
HQ, and if it's on your chaplain, he can actually do a decent amount of damage back to him. So
Well, and something else too with those two big scary units is if they've charged your squad of whatever and you drive your chaplain on a bike in there or your captain or whomever with this relic, you can then challenge him with the stratagem and he has to swing at you. So he's not damaging your squad at all, and he's only plinking one wound off at a time here, and you're saving on a 4+. So
it's just
yeah, I
so
mean, it's really really good. I love this relic.
it's just so good.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
So the T-bone.
yeah.
We're gonna be taking the T-bones.
T-Bone was ridiculously strong in Iron Hands, their version of it, and you can see
Yeah,
why. We can
yeah.
almost replicate dreadnoughts running around with this with Primaris chaplains. It's just ridiculous how good this
Yeah.
is.
So that is the main relics. What we have now to talk about is something called Relic Bearers. So if you're not familiar, despite the name, these are not relics. So keep that in mind. What these are is if you have a chaplain in your army, then you can take a relic bearer on a unit of infantry. For every unit of infantry, there is what, one, two, three. There's 8 of these, and it goes on a single model in the unit. And typically, it only affects that model, but that's okay because they're very good. All of them are very good. They cost points, not CP, which is nice. And they're all really reasonably uh, costed, in my opinion. I feel like none of them. We've talked about this a little bit before. Some of the stuff like Pyre Blasters, I think, are a little overpriced at 10 points. These are all between 10 and 20 points, and every one of them is worth the points. So let's get started on these. The first one is Light of the Emperor's Grace. And this is another anti-psyker one. So add 1 to the leadership characteristics of models in that unit. It's a weird random bonus, but okay. And then this model has the following ability. Light of the Emperor's Grace, Aura. While an enemy psyker is within 12 inches of this model, subtract 1 from psychic tests taken for that unit. Remember we said the skull can be taken on a sergeant. So a model can't have more than 1 relic. That's fine. These aren't relics. So you could put this on the sergeant of a Vanguard veteran squad, and they are looking at -2 for their psychic tests. And then when you raise the skull, it's -3.
Yep.
That's ridiculous. So if, again, it's niche, it's psychers, psycher stuff mainly. The leadership is helpful but not great. So again, if you have, a psycher heavy meta, you're going to consider this. It's 10 points. So yeah, good little upgrade.
Yep, I love it in combination with the route that we just went over, the skull. This will essentially, for the cost of a CP and 10 points, I believe it is, this can
Yep.
shut down Zerkers in big swaths
Yeah.
of the board. I mean, this is really
-2 is huge. That's a big dent. So yeah. So next up is Sigismund's Seal. This is the most expensive one at 20 points, and there's good reason for it. So at the start of the first battle round, this is the only one that actually affects the entire unit. Well, I guess Light of the Grace does for the leadership. At the start of the first battle round, select 1 enemy unit that is on the battlefield. Until the end of the battle, each time a melee attack is made by this model's unit against that enemy unit, you can re-roll the hit roll and you can re-roll the wound roll. So we're gonna obviously if we're gonna take this, we're putting this on probably Vanguard vets because they have the mobility to go attack whatever it is that you choose. But we're gonna pick the biggest, scariest thing in their army, and we're gonna hope to clash because reroll hits and wounds is all hits and wounds, not ones, all, which is huge. That is a massive DPS buff. So it's rightfully so that this thing costs 20 points. But yeah, if you make it to combat with, at least a few guys full of power weapons, you're going to smash that unit. So definitely consider this. You probably want this on either a really durable unit like Terminators or possibly Centurions, um, or a really fast mobile unit like Vanguard Vets, because they're going to be able to jump over stuff and pick that target.
Now, one
So,
of the other things that, while it's obviously going to be an offensive buff straight up, but one of the
mhm,
things that you can also use it for is a psychological defensive use of it.
yep,
Uh, and I talked about this in the stream a little bit, but you take this, you call out, hey, your XYZ unit is the most dangerous thing that I want. And my XYZ unit is super dangerous as well. So I'm targeting yours. Maybe it's your
yeah,
Terminators. So what are they going to do? They're going to take a wide berth across the board to avoid your centrally located Terminator squad or Vanguard veterans or whatever have you,
mhm,
where they might
yep,
make a tactical mistake to not, go forward with their game plan because they don't want to lose their huge nasty squad. So,
it's like almost like a distraction
yep,
carnifex.
for 20 points. So
Yep,
obviously, it has to go on a dangerous unit of yourself, but that
right,
psychological having to force choices for your opponent always puts you on the side of potentially winning the battle. Any advantage you can get in a competitive game is key.
yep, absolutely. All right, so up next is a blast from the past, a classic piece of war gear from Black Templars history, the Holy Orb of Antioch. Okay, so it's actually just called the Holy Orb, but we all know that it is, the Holy Hand Grenade, because GW has a great sense of humor, and this was in the fourth edition Codex, and it was amazing then, and it's amazing now. They did give us this relic in the Vigilus book, but it was really really subpar, and it was an actual relic versus this is just a squad upgrade, which is part of why this makes this so good. If this were an actual relic, it'd be probably tough to take over some of the other stuff we have. But being a relic bearer unit item, it's 15 points. Um, and it's once per battle. In your shooting phase, you can select an enemy unit that is within 6 inches and visible to this model. Note that it is not a weapon, so you can shoot it in any of your shooting phases. You can toss this grenade. You can be already in melee and toss this grenade. You can be 6 inches away from your target and toss this grenade. Does not matter. If you can advance and toss this grenade. So, really key to remember that. So, the first effect is roll 1d6 on a 2 up. That unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. Cool. I'll take some free mortal wounds for 15 points. Because that's almost always going to go off. So that's really good just by itself. But then on top of that, completely separate of to whether that goes off or not, until the end of the turn, that unit is not eligible to fight until after all eligible units from your army have done so. So it's a fight to last. This is really big. This could be a turning point in the battle where, and again, remember what I said, you can toss this even if you're engaged. So it's round 2 of this combat, and it is a crucial combat, and you need to make sure you go first, but it's your turn. So that means because it's ongoing, your opponent gets to choose first. Well, now you can make them fight last. Or maybe there's another crucial combat going on too, and it's going to be tough to decide. Well, now you just make this unit fight last while dealing some mortal wounds on top of it. Fantastic relic.
Yep.
Definitely worth
Yep.
taking.
I mean, just just for the fights last, it's worth taking. Getting extra mortal wounds out of the deal is really cool. Now, I've already heard some complaints around the internet with some modeling for advantage type things. So, as Black Templars players, just make sure that you're being honest. Mark out which one has it, so that you're not just cheesing it.
We should all have Holy Orb bits left over from 4th edition. I know they made a new one for the new upgrade kit, but how many? I know just between the people on the Discard, there have been more Black Templar kits bought than ever I've seen in my life. We all should have these bits. Stick it on a dude and paint it up bright and shiny gold, so we can
Just
see.
make sure you're not cheesing and
So
play honest.
right, yep. Next up, the Crux Obsidian. This is another fantastic one. It is also 15 points. Again, so remember this is on one model. Each time an attack is allocated to this model, subtract 1 from the damage of characteristic of that attack to a minimum of 1. So this is really good on like a Terminator who has a invulnerable save, and they're going to be shooting, D2, D3 weapons at them. It's going to be crucial, especially if you have a feel no pain for them to shrug wounds and keep that one model alive. And if you have an apothecary nearby, when that guy dies, res him up. so, so yeah, great relic
Yep,
bearer.
this is going to be, that's kind of a toss up, with another one that we have going on. But it's great on Terminators, it's great on Blade Guard veterans. It's
Anything with a storm shield, this will be good on, especially something with 3 wounds. I think 3 wounds and a storm shield, so Blade Guard, Terminators, this is an excellent take on.
Centurions.
Yeah, Centurions, it could work well on. They have 4 wounds. So yeah, just a overall fantastic take on just about any tough unit that's going to see high damage stuff. All right, so next up is the Fist of Balthus. This is a 10-point relic, and it replaces a Power Fist, which means that it can go on Crusader squads, which is probably where it's going to go. And this is another stellar upgrade. So this is obviously a Power Fist. It's Strength times 2. It's AP minus 3. It's a flat D3 damage, or flat 3 damage. It does not have a -1 to hit, which is fantastic. So now you've got a dude who has 3 attacks on the charge. You can put it on like a Terminator Sergeant, a Relic Terminator Sergeant, I guess, a Vanguard Vet Sergeant. But honestly, I think there's better options for that. I think for 10 points, this going on a Crusader squad is a fantastic buy and gives you a little bit more punch, literally.
Yep. Yep, this is a good straight damage buff over some things. You just have to make sure you weigh not putting this on something, a squad. If you're doing it on the Crusader squad, don't put it on a squad that's going to just get annihilated like a 10-man squad. It has to be on a little bit more bulky
Right.
squad so it lives long enough to get to where
Right.
it needs to go. Or
Yep.
something with storm shields. Because 10 points on top of the already 10-point cost of the Power Fist is still pretty
It's
expensive,
expensive.
but it does pull its weight if you get it to combat.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right. Moving on. This is probably the weakest of the bunch, but still
What?
not bad. The Beastpyre. Yeah, I'm sure you're using it in your
Burn the
Burn the Witches
Witches.
squad. So this replaces a Flamer or a Pyreblaster only. It's range 15 inches, assault D6, it's strength 6, AP minus 2, 1 damage. So it's okay. I wish it were damage 2.
Yep.
Because you're already paying 10 points for a Pyreblaster, and then you're paying another 10 points for this
Yep.
guy. So, but strength 6 is great. 15 inch,
And
AP minus
Blast.
2. It's solid. Oh yeah, it does have blast. That's right. So yeah, it's good against hordes. Got lots of hordes in your meta. Take the Beastpyre because we have a strat that helps out our other flamers. So it's okay. It's not my favorite, but it's not
Oh,
bad
it's
either.
gonna burn some witches.
All right. So moving on. This one, next one is one we alluded to earlier. It's the Icon of Heinmann. GW previewed this one as well. Each time an attack with an armor penetration characteristic of 1 or 2 is allocated to this model, that attack has an armor penetration characteristic of 0 instead. This is hilariously good. Uh, Especially on something like Centurions. I tried this out on my Centurions, and it is hilariously good because they have a 2-up save. They do not have they don't have an invulnerable save natively. So something like a Terminator, this is not that great on because they're already ignoring AP1 because they have a Storm Shield and they're at a um, one plus essentially. This could work on Blade Guard because they're at a 2 plus, um, which means you effectively need an AP3 for them to even trigger their invul save. Um, but this is great. This is a 15 points, fantastic Relic
Yeah.
Bearer upgrade.
This of any of the relic bearers, you're gonna be taking this. There is tons and tons and tons of AP 1 2 out there, and you need to
Yep,
be taking this with an apothecary.
probably something with a two
Yep.
2+ save. Yeah,
Put it on your 2 plus. So I mean, you can combine the Crux Obsidian and the Icon with 2 different units, utilizing that. But the trick is getting the apothecary to revive your relic barrier.
the
That is just
the
so
dude. Yeah,
gross, and it ups the durability of
yeah,
our units immensely.
yep,
Everyone's
yep.
talking about how slow we are,
It's
but
great.
between Uphold and these relic bearers, I mean, we can get there. We have the ability to
Hmm.
do what we want.
And honestly, this is a topic for another video. I don't think we're that slow, to be perfectly honest. So, in any case, Icon of Heinmann, A plus. Consider it in every game. Last but not least, the Bones of Mordred. What a fantastic sounding name that is. Each time this model makes a melee attack, an unmodified wound roll of 6 inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target in addition to any normal damage. So this is really good, obviously, on somebody with lightning claws because you're re-rolling wounds, so you're going to trigger more of those. Um, there's some shenanigans to be had with this. You can make a Sword Brethren the champion of the feast and give him this, and Mastercraft his lightning claw, and he's making 6 attacks that are damage 2 and 1 extra attack that's damage 1, and re-rolling wounds and triggering mortal wounds on that, and he can pile on a whole bunch of damage. So would you do that all the time? No. It's probably those upgrades are probably better spent on other things. But that being said, it's something that is possible. And I think even just taking this by itself on like a Sword Brethren squad that you're pimping out with Thunderhammers and the Sword of Judgment and the Champion of the Feast on like multiple different people to make multiple different models very good. You could pop this in there too if you have extra points and score some mortal wounds. So I like it. It's fun. It's solid. It's not going to be your first choice, but should be considered if you're running
Yep,
dudes with lightning
exactly.
claws.
It could be Vanguard veterans. Maybe you do the dual claws on maybe your sergeant on that. Take this. You'd be a good way to up
Yep.
your mortal wound output in your list. Plus, if you're taking lightning claws and storm shields on the rest of your guys, you can afford to not take one storm shield in the list, and
Hmm.
you can just guarantee
Yeah.
that you're going to be able to put out some mortal wounds. Uh, so that's a great
Yep.
take on some of the things. I mean, the great things about the relic bearers are you're not using CP on them; it's points. So you
Yep.
can, if you can
Yep.
spare 30, 40 points, you can afford to take multiple of
Yeah.
these things. And
And some of
yeah,
these you should take. Like, you should be taking either the Crux or the Icon, depending on what heavy hitting durable unit you're taking. You probably should have the Holy Orb in a competitive list. Fights last is so important, especially to be able to do it whenever on your turn. Like, not whenever, but in the shooting phase on your turn, even if you're already engaged. There are many times when it is a crucial round of fighting, and whoever gets to swing first is going to win that fight. So you can ensure it with this. So plus you're doing damage on top of it. So these are so many good applications for these. You'll want to spare 30 or 40 points in your lists for 2 to 3 of these probably every game. So a really awesome, unique thing for Black Templars. No other army has. Well, I mean, other armies have similar things like Cryptex for Necrons have upgrades, but those are character models. This is something that can buff a unit, and they're just really cool and flavorful while also being really good. So I love it. It's one of my favorite parts of the new books. And so that wraps up our video on relics and relic bearers. Thanks for sticking with us. I know this was a longer one. We had a lot more to cover doing both at once. So we really appreciate it. Definitely check out, if you enjoy this content, check out our Patreon, where we are get lots of benefits like videos, early access to videos, things like that. We also have a really active Discord community, so please come check us out. We have a great group of guys that love to talk, Black Templars and list strategy and lore and whatever it is, all things Black Templars and generic 40k as well. So please come check us out. Um, Leave a like. Let us know what you think. What's your favorite relic? What's your favorite relic bearer? Down in the comments. And until next time, keep on crusading.